Ken Hill Coaching, and I'm doing a video that I didn't think I was going to be doing. This is a follow-up to the Q4 versus slicks video that I did. And while that went great, I did have a lot of people ask me, well, what about Q3s? I know you've got a lot of experience on Q3s. How do the Q3s compare to the Q4s? So I did a test on them. So let's just dive right into it. And I'll also put a link in the comments with the Q4 versus slicks video. But yeah, this was also fun to do. And the results are pretty much what I expected, but it was really great to get data on these. So a little bit of background first. I got started with the Q2 or the Q series of Dunlop tires many years ago, over 10 years. Oh gosh, yeah, well over 10 years ago now. I think it was in 2009 when Dunlop sponsored the Yamaha school that I helped found with Nick Einach, a great school. And we needed a tire coming off the Freddie Spencer school. We had been using the Michelins and had a lot of good luck with the Michelins, but we needed a good training tire, obviously something with grip that would last. And Dunlop had just come out with the Q2s at that time. And we tried the Q2s and we're pretty blown away about how good they were. So we ran the Q2s for years, and then the Q3s came out, and then the Q3 pluses came out. And there was, quite honestly, many years where I didn't ride any other tire. Q3s, Q3 pluses were all I rode. Very rarely would I jump on another bike that might have slicks on it or a different brand. So I do have a lot of experience on these tires, and they're just absolutely fantastic, a fantastic tire. So, and again, just so we're transparent in everything, I try to be as transparent as possible. Yes, I'm a Dunlop sponsored rider. Dunlop has helped me out for many years. I've been lucky enough to do some testing with them. So is Dunlop paying me for this video? Absolutely not. Is this something that my clients and people that subscribe to me wanted to see? Yes. So my opinions are my opinions, and Dunlop understands that. So, all right. Just going into it, yes, a little bit of history on me with the Q tires. And the general characteristics of these tires, and we'll start to compare them to the Q4s here. The general characteristics of the Q series tires that they do have a harder carcass. So yes, they're a street tire, high performance street tire. Of course, you can use them on track. They're great in all sorts of environments, and they're even a pretty darn good intermediate wet tire as well. And I've ridden them in the rain a bunch. So the general characteristics is they do have a little bit harder carcass as compared to the Q4. And that's actually something that showed up on data, which is super interesting. The compounds, I guess, aren't as quote sticky as the Q4. And they do tend to, you have to ride them to get maximum performance out of them. You have to ride them a little bit differently. So we'll get into that. Pressure wise, I've experimented with pressures on these tires for years, and they're actually the same as Q4s. I go 29 cold front, 27 cold rear. And depending on the environment, I typically, once I set them, I never check them. I might do something where if the temperature is really crazy that day, I might check a hot pressure. And if they go above 5 pounds over what I set them at cold, I'll bleed them down to that 5 pound and then leave them there. And that typically works really well, but I don't overthink it. And many times I don't check them the entire day because they always work great. Test environment was Jennings Raceway again. I was down there. Had a great opportunity to test a new set of Q3s down there. I used a 120 front, used a 190 55 rear. Size-wise, I didn't really do anything different between my Q4 settings. I literally put the tires on, ran them, set pressures, good to go. So there really wasn't a need to optimize them. They felt great, and even though the geometry is maybe slightly different, again, I'm not overthinking it. I'm putting them on and riding them. It was held at a track day, but we had plenty of clear track this day. And the test bike was my G6R 1000. And again, no changes, actually no changes from the slicks other than ride height. I put them at my Q4 height and literally was good to go. Okay, great. So enough of this. I know it's like, shut up and show me the results. So that's exactly what we're going to, it's exactly what we're going to do now. So let's dive into it and let's look at the results. So, okay, a couple things. One, lap time wise, pretty interesting. I mean, I know from experience that there's really not a lot of lap time difference between the Q3 and the Q4. Typically, it's a half a second, maybe half a second to a second, maybe. They do produce their lap times a little bit differently, which you'll see here in a second. So, and honestly, the lap time was great. I mean, I ended up being within, I think it was just within 0.4 of the Q4s. So still ran in the very low 21s at Jennings, which is still within 8 or 9 seconds of a lap record. So very good lap time from these tires. So as we dive into it, okay, so what are the big differences, quite honestly, is side grip. Side grip meaning, you know, how much grip is on the edge of the tire. And there's less side grip, both front and rear, but they definitely have different feels when it comes to this. So let's talk about the front tire a little bit. The front tire definitely has a harder carcass feel than the Q4, but in some ways that's not a bad thing. You can actually get very, very good support on the brakes. The carcass kind of holds the bike up a little bit more, and it is, again, a very, very solid feeling. Once the bike is turned in, you don't quite have as much, say, feel or sense of grip as you do the Q4, but again, it's still very, very good. And on the rear, yeah, the rear just does not have as much side grip. And so what we end up having to do in that tire, and let's kind of draw it out here, what you end up having to do with the Q4 to get maximum grip is the bike has to be slowed and pointed more deliberately. Let me say that again, the bike just needs to be slowed and pointed a little bit more deliberately so the bike can be stood up a little bit better. So you can see it here down into turn 1, where it's a little bit slower speed, Then you can see it even down, I mean, just pretty much everywhere, all the slow points are pretty much a little bit slower everywhere. So yeah, I mean, the slow points are just a little bit slower because we just don't quite have that side grip. We can't carry just as much roll speed and expect to get on the throttle the same way. And I use the same electronic settings as I do the Q4. So all of that was identical, no changes there. And again, you just have to be more deliberate on getting the bike pointed so you can take it off that little bit of that side of the tire and get it going. So kind of interesting here. And this is where I found I think part of it is I have so much time on the Q3 that I understand the tire a little bit better than maybe the Q4, even though I've been on the Q4s a lot. And the difference is on drive grip. So a drive grip, I mean, the bottom line is that the Q4 has more drive grip than the Q3. That said, the Q3's breakaway. So when it does lose grip, and bear with me, right? We're dealing at the sharp end of this, right? This is a very good lap time for the environment. And, you know, if you're sort of not in this sort of very, very sharp end, you more than likely aren't going to see these types of things. But again, we're trying to operate at the sharp end and we want to know what the limits are of these. So this is the kind of information that I want to be able to give everyone. So because the breakaway is sooner and more gradual, it's actually a pretty good feeling where you can get the bike, where in the Q4, the tire might break away and it breaks away. And then you might go, oh gosh, I'm not sure how far it's going to break away. Or the TC is, the TC's coming in and out a little bit more aggressively, where on the Q3 Plus, when the TC comes on, it kind of stays on and it gives you a little bit more confidence to say, oh, okay, yeah, the electronics have got it. This is great. And you can actually see that in some of these exits. Like this is a huge rear tire section right here in Jennings. coming off of 11. And this is when, yes, I had the bike slowed at less speed at the slow point, but driving here, I just had more confidence to stay in the throttle and stay into the TC. You can actually see that here coming onto the front straight as well. So a little bit interesting there is that I wasn't getting, I just wasn't getting in and out of the TC so much. The TC stayed on, and the Suzuki's just got great electronics, so it gave me a little bit more confidence there. So this was pretty interesting here. So let me clear this off and talk about this, because this also surprised me here, and this surprised me in here. So just so we're talking apples to apples here. The Q3 is, I should have mentioned this earlier, the Q3 is blue, the Q4 is red, where we can carry a little bit more speed in these sections. And that kind of baffled me at first. And here, this isn't a place where you're necessarily driving. It's a place where you've rolled off the throttle and very, very high speed. And the bike's got a pretty good load on it, but it's not necessarily a lot of decel, and it's not necessarily a lot of acceleration. And I felt there that the stiffer carcass of the Q3 held the bike up a little bit more. And that's what contributed to that section, because that really surprised me. In some of the lower speed corners, you can see that the Q4 holds the bike up really nicely there. It's kind of gets it, the tire carcass is squashed, gets it in and out. But in these high speed sections, it felt like the stiffer carcass of the Q3 was a little bit better in those sections. Down here, you can see there's very little difference in any of the lean angle. There's really no differences in any of the lean angle. I could nitpick this, but it's really not worth it. So there's really not a lot of difference in any of the lean angle. And here you can see the lap time deltas as well. Q3 is actually eked out a little bit more here, coming down into turn 3. Oh, and I should point out here, let me clear this off. Unfortunately here, I did have somebody that I had to pass, and that's why the speed's a little bit lower there. So yes, the speed was great here, very good drive. But unfortunately, I did have to pass somebody here. So that's why that is off a little bit. I'm not going to stress out too much about that. So there you go. Q3 plus versus Q4. To wrap up, first of all, it's just a crazy capable tire. Again, no tire warmers. Set the pressures and go. Yeah, absolutely amazing, amazing tire. Same with the Q4. And again, let's just kind of wrap up the characteristics. Characteristics are that we have a little bit stiffer carcasses, and to take advantage of it, the front, you want to make sure to take advantage of that is that the front carcass needs to be pretty deliberately squashed to make sure that you take advantage of the grip and the feedback that it offers. And they don't have as much side grip, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if you understand what's happening with that and what your motor controls do to control that. So overall, yeah, gosh, I was surprised that the lap time was so close, but not too surprised, right? Just because we've had quite a bit of experience with them. And the funny thing is that, okay, which tires would I prefer to run? And honestly, it doesn't matter. I mean, I have more experience on the Q3 plus, Q3, Q2. So I'm very familiar with that, what those feel like. But then again, the Q4, the confidence that tire gives you right out of the gate is just absolutely nuts. So I'm good with either of them. So anyway, there you go. I hope that this has been helpful for you, Q3 plus versus Q4, and help educate you a little bit on your next tire choices.